So you're in your garage.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of assembling. You're buying some parts. You're assembling a few guns. And how do you get your first customers? And I mean, you're showing us, an absolutely gorgeous, custom rifle, but this is not coming out of the garage day one.
Not day one, but we had some cool, for the time, really cool stuff coming out. But yeah, first customer. So there's a forum called the Texas Hunting Forum. And again, I Rolodex from a Bowtech play. Bowtech one time, one of the owners told me that when they needed to make sure the brand was cool, they went around and they basically paid these guys across the country to jump on a forum and be like, hey, have you heard of this company Bowtech? They're doing this really neat thing. You should check them out. Oh, I saw them.
You're giving away trade secrets now.
Well, so now I'll stop there. But basically, they drove up talk about the product. And so I started getting heavy on the forums and I tried to give information that didn't feel exclusive. I was like, well, if these guys over here are charging from the information, if I can be subject matter expert and I can give you information and gain trust, then people will want to work with us. And so we started doing the stuff on the forums, and I loved it. My wife, she's a sweetheart. She would basically take our brand new son, and somebody would come to our house. They'd go in our living room and they'd go to this little office we had and sit down with me. And I'm a talker, and I've always been a talker. And she would basically keep our newborn son in the back room quiet for hours on end while I tried to drum up customers.
Were you doing it Texas style and inviting them over for dinner too?
Come on, yeah.
We're having beans and chicken.
And it worked though, because we ended up finding, I'll fast forward a little bit, like one of the guys that we found on there, his handle was Venatic. And Venatic is one of our rifle series named after him. Venatic means, something that pertains to or obsessed with hunting. And he was our customer number one. I'll never forget. He called me from Waco and he said, "It's David Stroud. I've seen you on the forums and I got this weird muzzle brake. I'm going to describe it to you, but I'm driving to you and I need you to build one before I get there." Oh, geez, man. So I'm out here trying to make this muzzle brake that I've never made before from some guy that I met on the forum who's driving an hour and a half to buy this.
How are you making a muzzle brake? What are you using for that?
I learned from Bowtech. They had taught me some lathe skills. And so I had a big chunk of barrel and a lathe and basically dimensions.
And a drill press?
Yeah.
Were you using that?
Just an old school Grizzly drill press. Is like $couple $1,000 drill press and a lathe and some notes on a napkin that he had described to me on the phone. And I'm like, I have to do this because this guy's big on the forums, right? And since then, we've become great friends, and he's attributed to so much of our success. And actually, so paralleling forward to go, to roll in 22 Creedmoor, he was one of the first guys that asked for it.
The 22 Creedmoor is something that you and David Stroud pioneered.
Yeah, me, David Stroud, and some help from Hazer, basically pioneered this cartridge, right?
So the 22 Creedmoor, for those listening and not into hunting, is, as of today, I would say probably the fastest growing caliber in the outdoor space.
100%.
It has become a complete game changer. And what it was known as a Wildcat round for about 10 years. A Wildcat round is a non-SAMI approved round. That is just made in garages
basically
or wherever, whatever ammo company you can get to get some brass and some projectiles. And I want to hear about the genesis of those conversations, because you have developed an incredible reputation in the outdoor space. Today, you've created a name for yourself as somebody that is pioneering a lot of new technology. So, and it all started with the 22 Creedmoor.
It started with 22 Creedmoor, yeah. So, in Texas, there are a lot of hunting competitions. So I want to describe that for a little bit. So basically, in a 24-hour period, you and I would be on a team, and we would basically hunt for 24 hours and harvest, predators. And then we'd take those predators to a weigh-in, and whichever team had the most weight essentially wins money, right? And it's big money in Texas. Like, they're the biggest one. We sponsor it now. It's kind of funny to start with it and now sponsor it. But it pays out, over $50,000 for whoever shoots the biggest bobcat 3 times a year. So $50,000 3 times a year. So it's huge money. And so what we were doing is we were using a different cartridge, a 22 250, which is fast, great. A lot of people use them, don't have any hate for them.
Classic cartridge.
Classic, yeah. And what was happening is you shoot lightweight projectiles really fast, but what would happen if in these competitions, every minute counted. Right? And so there's a competition I remember doing with Hazer in Wyoming. We shoot this coyote, and he runs off, and I'm having to trail it, and we end up being late to weigh in by 30 minutes. If you're late, it doesn't count. And we lost out on over $4,000 for being late. And I left there and remember thinking we were going to shoot the biggest, heaviest, fastest thing and just KO stuff right there. And so we started messing around with a 22-243, another Wildcat, and David Stroud came to me and said, well, what about this Creedmoor deal? I said, man, we were doing the 6.5 Creedmoor at the time and took a lot of slack.
When you say, when he came to you and said, what about this Creedmoor deal?
Yeah.
What does he mean by that?
So
translate that.
Yeah, so the Creedmoor case was something that Hornady had done and released, I'm going to say, in the 2009, 10, 11 window. And basically what they did is the Creedmoor name refers to the shape of the brass. And then basically you put the powder and the projectile in that. Now I have a 6.5, so the size of a neck of the bullet, and then the case, Creedmoor. And they basically pioneered this 6.5 Creedmoor, and it revolutionized the game. Low recoil, had really good ballistic performance, but at the same time, it kind of overlapped some old classic offerings and really offended some people.
And so 6.5 is the diameter of the projectile.
Correct. 6.5 millimeters, yeah. Yep. And so it's or 0.264 inches, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was gaining traction, but it was really stepping on the toes of conventional thought. So people are like, oh, it'll never last because the 260 is better. Well, we just said, we'll just lean into it. And so we were just pumping it on the forums. And so David showed up and said, well, what if we just neck down the 6.5 to a 22? We shove a 22 projectile in it. Now we have a 22 Creedmoor. It'll be fast, flat, whatever.
So just about the same amount of powder, correct?
Yeah.
So same amount of gunpowder in the brass.
Yep.
Smaller projectile. Goes a lot faster.
Really, really fast. Which fast in the world of hunting predators, I always like to tell people you are trying to shoot something the size of a 2-liter bottle at an unknown distance that's moving, right? And so you just need margin of error. Everything you can do to get you margin of error gives you more hits on target. And so we made one, and it fed, so actually the bullet came up out of the magazine, and it fed and cycled and performed better than the 22-243 that we were using. We're like, man, this might actually work. And so I built one for me, one for David, and David went out, of course, put it on the forums, and it just took off. And so we started building more and building more.
So were you then... So were you buying the components also to make the ammo?
Yeah.
So you had what, like a Dillon press?
Yeah, exactly. I had a Dillon press, bought a Dillon 650 press.
And you just started buying powder and projectiles and getting the brass and loading it.
And then we were really going after the kind of wildcatters, right? The people who wanted to load and stuff. And I think what really sort of flipped the switch is we had an old flat track racetrack in our hometown, right? And I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. When you win a flat track race, the people who competed against you are allowed to buy your motor because you're not allowed to spend more than a certain amount on your motor, so that you're not cheating. They buy your motor and they take it out of your car and run home, right? Well, the predator market started to kind of act like that. So David and them would go to these competitions and they'd win them. Man, what is David's strategy? Oh, he's using a 22 Creedmoor. Well, some of the guys that we were working with, David, they now had 22 Creeds. Well, they would sell theirs to a competitor they just beat and then call me and want another one. And I'm like, oh, this is really interesting.
Because there's no other gun manufacturer making a 22 Creedmoor.
And so now all of a sudden, the teams that were winning money were buying 22 Creedmoors and using Horizon guns. And so it just started getting really popular.
Now, were you playing at that point with different loads, different projectile sizes, trying to dial in the ballistics?
Yes, and trying to dial in the ballistics. And at the same time, there's some really interesting science between twist rate of the barrel. So the inside of a barrel is twisted, right? And it spins the bullet so many revolutions per inch, right? And so if you spin a bullet too fast, it's kind of like a top. It'll literally explode before it gets downrange. If you spin it too slow, it wobbles like a duck football and doesn't hit the target appropriately. So there's a fine range in too fast, too slow, and so we mess around with twist rates and loads to get it just right. Partially luck, and we'll talk about that later. But partially luck and a lot of tri-storming, and
a lot of tri-storming.
Tri-storming.
What is tri-storming?
It's kind of like brainstorming, but instead of just thinking about it, you just do it.